Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members, Senator Stern. Congratulations on presenting your first bill, I believe, in the legislature. It's an honor to work with you, and I certainly want to commend your efforts to give some comfort to the people that live in this area that were tragically faced with some health issues that they weren't planning on and having to move themselves or have themselves moved out of the area until this could be figured out. I just have a few concerns. It seems like one thing that you'll see the legislature does is sometimes we kind of move the goalposts. And erring on the side of public safety is always the best route. And I would assume that the gas company spent a considerable amount of money and it probably has a significant amount of exposure at this point in time because of this gas leak, that they kind of know where the breach occurred, but they don't know why the breach occurred. And that's what
That's accurate.
That's what you're after, is why the breach occurred. And they kind of mitigated that, at least in my mind, by coming up with this new steel pipe that is going to be utilized instead of the other pipe that gave way. So my concern is that this well, which I believe is to be the largest of its type west of the Mississippi, is very important for electrical utilities in Southern California. We've heard from the Manufacturing Council. And I'm concerned that we could potentially see blackouts if we don't get to that root cause fast enough, because as you heard, it's going to take at least 8 weeks for them to bring the volume up of this depot to a sufficient level where they can cover the increased demand that's going to happen in Southern California. You're from Southern California, you know it gets a little bit hot, even along the coastal areas. Certainly in Temecula, where I'm from, and the Coachella Valley, it gets very, very, very hot. We want to make sure that we don't have rolling blackouts. We had that problem during the Gray Davis administration, and it didn't go well, certainly for them. I also understand that there's a certain pecking order as to who will get electricity in the event that there is a shortage and who will get it. And I understand that hospitals are potentially impacted, which is a concern for me, being a medical professional. So I guess my first question is, why can't we run concurrent, doing the study? At the same time, they said that they're going to bring the gas in slow. I can't believe for a minute that they want to further exacerbate the health of the community by bringing gas in when SB380 would allow them to do so. It sounds like they've got a lot of great monitoring devices, and I can't believe that they'd want to put themselves in financial peril once again if they didn't think that they had all their ducks in order. It seems like they fixed every single well with this new infrastructure, and I'd be interested to hear from the gas company, maybe a little more comprehensively about what they did and what it cost them to do it, and to give me assurances that they believe that this disaster is behind us. But I'm concerned about the availability of electricity and natural gas and maybe the winter, because while I know you have your deadlines, government never seems to do things on time. It takes government a long time, and so I'm not just worried about people being able to use their air conditioning during the summer months. I'm concerned about people getting gas in the colder months as well. So if you can answer that, and maybe the gas company could elaborate a little bit more on their infrastructure.
Yeah, let me kind of address some of your questions. The testing that we've gone through on that well casing, the ones that aren't going to be used, was an 8 battery of tests that were developed by Dogger in consultation with the national labs on how do you determine the best test to use to prove integrity of that piece of pipe. Yeah. We've been doing integrity of our transmission pipelines for a long time. They came down from the federal rules. And in this case, Dogger, along with the labs, came up with that series of 8 tests. And what it does is you start out looking, is there a current problem with the well? That's the first series of tests. Then you move to the point where you say, okay, now I have to know what's the shape of the well and what condition is. Has there been metal loss? Has there been corrosion? And then you take that information and you say, Now, if I have a certain amount of metal loss, will that piece of pipe maintain the pressure? And we use a calculation that Dogger came up with, the National Labs. Here's a calculation that says it can withstand the pressure plus a certain percentage. And then ultimately, we pressure test it to make sure it will withstand that pressure. And then we take that new inner steel pipe, put that in the ground, which has been designed for the pressures, and then we pressure test that as well. So
Is it my understanding that the pressure that you were testing is not a pressure that you anticipate even getting back to in this well in time in the near future?
The requirements for the testing add a 15% margin on top of what the maximum allowable pressure. When the leak was occurred, the maximum allowable pressure was about 3,600 pounds. When you look at some of the numbers like that 30 BCF number, it will be less than 2,000 pounds. So you're reducing that pressure by at least 40%. But you remember, we tested to that higher pressure, so you got this extra safety margin in there as well.
Do you have any alternatives for any of the storage sites if the site is not allowed to receive gas in the near future?
With respect to, we do also operate 3 other storage fields. The use of those fields will increase dramatically. It did this last summer and this winter, which caused, more and more cycling that you have to use on those fields. And we'd like to move those fields, and I mentioned last year in Senate hearings that, we're moving towards that same configuration at those other fields, which will impact their availability on it coming forward.
So have you provided the new infrastructure that you did at the Aliso site to these 2 other fields that you have, or is that in the plan?
So the new infrastructure, we're currently operating on our plan for our Playa del Rey facility, and we'll have all the inspections, and the new tubing should be done by the first quarter next year.
Okay.
We have some space constraints on how much work we can do at a given time at Playa del Rey. We're also looking at a plan to be completed by next year at our Honor Rancho facility, which is in Santa Clarita. And then Goleta, our Goleta facility is up by, UC Santa Barbara, looking at how we move forward with the plan on there as well.
And just lastly, what do you think if you're not given the permission to start getting gas in there until this route analysis is done? Do you believe that we're going to be at risk in Southern California of not having enough energy to fund essential services?
So one of the critical aspects of my job is to operate the system, to make sure the gas is available to every single customer and every single day. We operate a system that sometimes is under a lot of stress. In this past year, it was under significantly more stress without Aliso Canyon. And when we look at how that could impact it, it keeps me up at night wondering, because a single day, a single incident could have a problem. When you live on the edge, one small step and you fall. We like to operate a system with resources, just like they would on the electric system, with resources that you can call on if needed. We can't operate it on hope.
Yeah.
That hope you're going to have cold weather, hope you're going to have all the supplies, hope everything is going to work. We need to have assurances. Operators sit there day in and day out watching the system operate.
And you're going to spend significant amounts of money, obviously, mitigating the issues that transpired. And I would imagine that you and your board had significant discussions about following SB380 to the letter of the law and starting to get gas pumped back in, understanding that there is a financial liability placed on you, but you feel confident that you've addressed all the concerns, and we haven't heard from Dogger. I'm curious to know whether they have embraced your conclusions, and you understand the liability that you face in the event that something.
And we definitely do, and that's why not only did we look at SB 380 and the Dogger Order 1109, that's where we went to the extra step to put in the new intersteel pipe. We'd rather only use new pipe to move it, so that's an extra added. We took that step, says that's the way we make ourselves comfortable.
I applaud you for that. Thank you for your testimony.
Senator Atkins.
If I may just respond to Senator Stone, too, I just wanted to acknowledge and appreciate the concerns you raise, and also acknowledge the level of activity and engagement from the regulatory agencies and from the gas company in looking after these 34 wells that are proposing to be reopened. But a number of wells actually failed the testing and are not going to be brought back online. A number of the wells have been killed, and there are still leaks going on currently with that field. AQMD has reported, even in the last month, new leaks. They don't exactly know why. There are some issues around the sort of geological integrity around the wellhead site, where leaking may not be occurring through a well itself, but actually through the ground because of the kind of geological fractures that occurred at the surface. But I also wanted to note that this argument about energy reliability that you raise, and look, I live in Canoga Park, right? So it's one of the hottest places in the entire San Fernando Valley. It does get hot in the summer. Agree. And there are hospitals in the neighborhood, and we need a strong and reliable grid. So I absolutely do not want to downplay or minimize the importance of that point. This may end up being a more appropriate discussion for Senator Hueso's committee should this bill move forward, and Energy Committee, and I do want to engage in that discussion. But what I will say simply now is that under existing legal and constitutional authority, both the governor and the agencies have authority under emergency conditions, which very well could include a gas supply shortage or weather events, to re-inject into that field. We do not need to give these agencies any new authorization or any new authority to allow injections. What we're trying to say is, let's structure a more orderly process for completing that analysis, try to get it done in this short amount of time. If it cannot be completed, and the conditions truly do permit a re-injection, that they require that, the administration has plenty of authority to authorize that without any new law, and this bill would do nothing to harm that authority. That's why I did want to refer you to page 8 of your analysis for a very thoughtful amendment I thought suggested by the committee, and I appreciate the staff work done in anticipation of this hearing, recognizing those inherent authorities. So,
An amendment, Mr. Senator?
yes, absolutely. Looking forward to taking that amendment, and I think it provides some meaningful clarity on this issue.
Okay.